Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Climbing Sycamores podcast, where we look at today's topics to get a better view of Christianity. I'm Annie Beege, and I'm joined by my friends Ben Sadler and Matt Harbach. Rolling.
Hello, everybody.
Ben, you're always on a diet. A couple months ago, you were walking backwards.
Yes.
What kind of a diet is walking?
Well, that was part of the whole lifestyle. It was and honestly, I've seen people at the gym walking backwards on the treadmill and stuff. Yeah. It's crazy. But now you're doing.
I only eat meat. Yeah, it's like the anti-vegan diet. Really, that's what the opposite of veganism.
So that the vegans don't make an impact on the world.
That's why we got to level them out.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I've always been on the pursuit of all right, what's going to make me feel best? And so,
but you keep changing it.
Right. Nothing seems to stick, right?
No,
it's always refining. So it's evolved over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a time where, I ate everything, ate it all. And then probably about 10 years ago, I started saying, all right, I got to do less carbs, but I was still eating bread and but I'm going to do more fruits and vegetables. And I felt pretty good. That helped.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to eat fried food, that kind of thing. No sugar. And then about, 6-7 years ago, I was 30 pounds heavier, 40 pounds heavier, something like that. It was pretty heavy when I got out of seminary. Then, 7-8 years ago, I went basically kind of keto-ish, and I felt okay, but I would always kind of go back and forth. Then I really cut all gluten out.
Mm-hmm.
I did a genetic test, and I have a gluten issue, and that was a game changer. So many things changed after that, but I still haven't had good sleep. Sleep has really been really bad. So I went down to a Whole30. I still would have big salads and omelets filled with spinach and everything and all that other stuff. But I've been doing basically carnivore meat only for a while. And every once in a while, I'll have a banana and my sleep will be bad. I'll have just a little bit of honey and bananas or some apples, or I'll have a cup of coffee. Totally throws it off. But if I just eat meat, I sleep better. My performance at the gym, all my workouts are way better. I don't have any joint problems. All of my my arthritic knee, it's all gone away. So that's my thing. As nothing, I would never preach this from the pulpit, obviously, but this is my personal thing that I felt. Yeah. So
40 is the new 30. Huh?
That's right. Yeah.
Crushing it.
And a lot of it is managing you're getting older, because my knee was getting so inflamed that I could not. I couldn't sleep at night. It was just really in a lot of pain, and I couldn't do a lot of the workouts I wanted. And so I noticed if I would have sugar or a bowl of ice cream the next day, I'd be inflamed all over the place. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a little extreme. Some people are really. I've looked at it. Sometimes I'll have a vitamin every once in a while. So I'm am I not getting a vitamin C if I do this? But really, all the vitamins and nutrients that you need are in beef. And really it's beef over chicken, and I have eggs too, and some cheese every once in a while.
You're going to check your cholesterol?
Yeah, that's the people talk about that. I don't think, I think a lot of it, I'm not a doctor, a lot of the heart issues are from plaque, and that a lot of that's the sugar and the damage, the oils and the seed oils and things like that, and just the general diet. There's people who've been doing this for decades, and all of their numbers have been better. I also have thyroid issues that my thyroid's really low, and so I'm trying to do this to try to also maintain that. So I don't know.
You could take my approach and just not go to the doctor.
There you go. Don't go to the doctor.
Because I don't want to know.
Basically, I try this. I experiment. I don't only eat meat, and when I don't, I want to take a nap. I just feel so much fatigue. I feel, ornery, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, really, a banana? That's going to affect but it seems to have really messed me up. So
interesting.
I don't think it's for everybody.
Sure.
But it makes it
if
funny.
You feel good, you got to listen to your body,
That's
right?
right, it is.
You know?
But it makes it fun here when I come to eat lunch at our staff meetings, and
your food is still mooing at us.
I have a bowl of
reaches into his bag and just pulls a fistful of ground beef
of red ground beef.
Yeah,
that's
I don't
still
cook
talking.
it very. I like it pretty raw. And everybody's got nice salads and other a more eclectic, normal, healthy diet, and I'm here with raw meat.
It's apparently May is salad month, by the way. National
Okay.
Salad. It's also National Burger Month. I learned that on the radio this morning. So
I'll take the burger.
Yeah, me too. I'll take the burger. Anyways, let's talk about some Christian theology and everything. There's been every once in a while we'll talk about people in the news and maybe in media and celebrities who are looking at Christianity. And I think the reason we talk about this is because it seems like the statistics are that so many people are walking away from Christianity, especially any kind of mainstream, big name kind of people are leading the charge and talking about how Christianity is the problem. But the comedian Russell Brand, I have been kind of following him a little bit on and off because I remember he went into recovery. I think he had a heroin addiction, I believe it was. He was married to Katy Perry at one time.
Yes, that's right. I forgot about that.
And really bad drug addiction. And then he wrote a book on his recovery process, and it was funny. I've read most of it. I have it at home, where he took the 12 steps and added colorful language to it all. So it's not for young ears, but it was interesting talking about how forgiveness was a big part of his recovery process. And he talked about spirituality in general, and over the years I've kind of heard him talk, and it sounded very much like a Buddhist kind of everything is one, and we just need to meditate and let's be at peace with the world. But this last week, he did a video where he says, "I'm a Christian now, and he got baptized, and he's been really promoting this as his next step in his journey." And I thought it was interesting because he's been in the news also lately because there was some things that were dusted up from this past where he had some sexual scandals and things like that. And so he was in the news for that. And so I don't know, you guys watched the video and you've heard me talk a little bit about it. What do you think about Russell Brand, and what does this mean for our faith and Christianity? And do you think this is of importance at all?
I'm not really sold.
Okay. Yeah. On
what?
On him?
On him, yeah.
Okay.
I've actually been trying hedonism lately. I gotta say it's pretty great. No, obviously I think it's good. I think his story is really cool because he's someone who, well, this brings me to a Dave Ramsey quote, which is, he basically says, people always say, they always told us that money wouldn't buy happiness, but we had to go try for ourselves.
Yeah.
Where everybody who we revere as wise throughout history has always said, fame won't get you happiness, money won't get you, can't find it in the material things of this world. And then Russell Brand does that, just that, and he goes searching for it, and he finds it and hits rock bottom and bounces back, and now here he is saying material is not everything. So this is not new,
right?
But also truth isn't new, and God's word isn't new, and it just people just keep discovering the same thing that has been true all along. So,
and that was kind of in his testimony that he was talking about his faith. He said, at first you feel a little silly, like, oh, this thing that everybody's been talking about for thousands of years, this is the answer. We want to be unique. We want to be, find something edgy or this thing in front of, it's in plain sight, the thing we heard about when we were kids. And so he's a little almost embarrassed about that.
Yeah.
And yet he says, yeah, but it is. And because it's true. He also kind of took some shots at kind of the organized institutional Church of England that seems to be almost allergic to talking about God as to not offend anybody. The church doesn't really want to talk about some of these deeper theological things. So it's kind of a watered down faith. And he's also said, one of his big things, he's got a YouTube channel, and, it's probably not worth anybody's time. But his big thing on his YouTube channel is he talks a lot about hypocrisy in our world, and all these different organizations and institutions that are all just about money, and so he's about uncovering some of those things. And his big thing is hypocrisy, and he talks about how the message of Christ is you don't have to be a hypocrite anymore. You can just be honest about your failings. You can start over, and he talked about his baptism being this beautiful watershed moment where he's starting over. So I think that's pretty remarkable. He does talk about, how hard it is to really accept this and believe this in an age of what we've talked about, the new atheists of the Richard Dawkins and the Sam Harrises who are just making fun of Christianity, and yet he says they don't have any answers. He sees many people coming to Christian faith because there's so much emptiness. There's so much anger. There's so much frustration. There's no answers. There's so much emptiness. So he thinks there's gonna be a resurgence of Christianity.
I'm inclined to believe that as well. Just anecdotally, it just seems like because the world is in such a state of affairs that there just is no answer.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you guys read the comments on the YouTube video, but it was really cool to see, so many people were kind of giving their own testimony about how they had been recently baptized or they had lived a certain way for so long and, came to faith and whatever. And, one gal in the comments said when some of the pedophilia stuff was coming out and about Hollywood, which has happened kind of recently, that literally was like the turning point for her where she's like, there's nothing that can fix this. There's just nothing. It's so deeply rooted and there's just nothing that can fix it. So she testified that she had, come to faith or whatever and believes in Jesus. So the comments were like really cool to see.
Yeah.
And I know that that's only people who, who are encouraging, and I know that there are people on the other end of the spectrum. I think, deconstruction, as we've talked about on this podcast, has been really prevalent as well. So it's almost like you have people going into different directions. But I think the world is in such a state that people are looking, they're grasping at something. I mean, starting probably honestly with COVID, where things just really started, social injustice and all these things we've talked about, and just deep state of needing repair.
He also talked about, so when you brought up the scandals in Hollywood, he brought up the scandals inside the institutional church. When people were asking him, why would you join a church or become a Christian when the church has done so many horrible things? And, but when his response, it's the institutions, it's not Jesus.
Right.
I'm turning to Jesus and only Jesus is the answer to respond to those institutional problems. And just because it happens in Hollywood or it happens in the church or it happens in a business doesn't mean there's no longer a need for business. There's no longer a need for movies. There's no longer a need for a church. It's the people, and it's not the ideas behind it. It's the sinful people. So I don't know. I've been encouraged by it. I think people are looking for something, and I've heard him talk about spirituality. Like I said, he would talk about meditation a lot, but now he's like, I'm doing a book club and we're going to read C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. I'm like, oh my goodness, this man is reading Mere Christianity. So you have a quote there.
Yeah, I printed off this quote. So this is from the video. Certainly you should watch that video, but I just wanted to steal this quote that he is responding to from David Icke, who has made a tweet about it, and basically referencing between Candace Owens, Tammy Peterson, and Russell Brand all be converting to Catholicism, basically. He says, they talk about freedom of speech and convert to a church with a long, long history of mass murder for the crime of having a different opinion. Extraordinary. Something's going on, and it's not good. Hurl all the abuse you like. It matters not to me. It needs saying when blatant cognitive dissonance is so rampant. So that obviously just struck me as what we've talked about in the past couple weeks, being that there's this idea that to be worldly and to be sophisticated and well-educated means that you can learn about every belief system and every worldview, but that you wouldn't ever pick religion as your own. It's like our best self is enlightened, which means we don't believe in any higher power, because that would be regressive or something.
Well, he's distorting or convoluting this idea of free speech doesn't go against, or Christianity doesn't go against free speech. Those are two different things. That yes,
I think he's calling out like heresy. If you're a heretic, you're speaking against the church.
Right. So if you say you're a Christian, you believe in certain tenets that are true. And if you speak against those, it's not against free speech. It's just saying you're not a Christian. And
sure.
And Christianity has a belief system that says, I'm going to speak the truth in love to you, and I'm going to love you no matter what you say or who you are or what your belief system are. I'll give you that right to speak freely about it. But if you say you're a part of a group and yet you don't believe what the group stands for, you're not part of the group. That's a different idea than free speech. If you're if you say you're a Democrat and you don't believe the tenets of the Democratic Party, you're not a Democrat. If you're a Republican and you don't believe and you say things against the tenets of being a Republican, if you're Christian yet you don't believe you don't hold to the beliefs of the Apostles' Creed or the Nicene Creed, you're not a Christian. And that doesn't mean that it's narrow-minded or bigoted or any of those things. It just means there are certain pillars that you hold to that's what brings us together. And they're pillars that actually promote good things. They promote acceptance. They promote goodwill. It's based on this belief that we're all more sinful than we could imagine, but we're more loved by God than we could ever comprehend. And so, yeah, we still stand for something.
Yeah, I think there's just like this fundamental misunderstanding about Christianity. Like, you don't have to become a Christian. I'm sorry. In order to become a Christian, you don't have to join the church and then condone everything that sinful people have ever done.
Right.
Like it's a belief system. And when we go to church on Sunday, the first thing we do is we all stand there together and say, we are sinners.
Right.
Like, so people who go to church don't condone, it's, I think you said this quote, maybe this was a John Lennox quote, like just because a government is bad doesn't mean all government is bad,
Right. It's the people. Yeah.
Right. And that's I think too simplistic, where when people look at the faith, they're like, that institution has a history of, it's like every institution has a history of something.
Well, right. And they mentioned, he mentioned also in this quote, but then also Russell Brand kind of mentioned too, like some of religious ideology has been blamed as the cause of like war. And it's like, well,
what about every other war that doesn't seem as religious?
Well, right. There's territory, there's resources. Like there's, I think the stuff kind of going on currently is more about territory and resources than it is about revenge, right? Yeah. Like just hatred than it is about religion. It's more about territory.
Right, exactly. And a lot of those, a lot of the Crusades or all those different things, they're about power. They're about more than just the church. And that when the church aligns itself with the government and tries to get power from each other. I mean, that's really the book of Revelations, talking about the beast of the earth and the beast of the church kind of colluding together so that for evil, basically, for power. So the Bible itself speaks against that. And when the Roman Catholic Church has done that in the past, the scriptures speak against that. Something that happened 1,000 years ago. So, this quote, they talk about freedom of speech and convert to a church with a long, long history of mass murder for the crime of having a different opinion. Mass murder is something that happened under dictators like Hitler and Stalin, who are all atheists. The Catholic Church, does have a history of, persecuting Martin Luther and John Huss and some people who tried to hold the church to the truth. So that's true, but it's not mass murder. And again, freedom of speech is different than excommunicating somebody.
Yeah.
And those are two different things.
I can see where he's talking about the mass murder, though. I mean, there are some things that you can blame on the church, the institution of the church. I mean, I think like the First Crusade, if you read about how the First Crusade started, basically the Byzantine emperor went to the Pope and said, we keep losing territory. Anything you can do to like get some guys over here? That's basically what the conversation was. The Pope, and then the Pope says, hey, the church is under attack from heathens, and any good young Christian man should go
make a religious war.
Make it a religious war, So, you can, I think you can lay some of that at the feet of the church. But if you look at that, it's like none of that is based on the Bible. Right. There's no Bible passage that says, Deus vult.
Right.
That was two people in power trying to solve some crisis that they were facing.
Mm-hmm.
And today, where are you going to find, if you become a member of a Christian church today, what kind of person is that going to lead you to become? Is there any Christian church right now that's asking to start a crusade? And no, there's not. And
it's not in the Bible,
Yeah.
It's not in the Bible. If there was a church, it's like, well, okay, so you said Hitler was atheist. Some people would say, well, Hitler was Catholic. It's like, okay, well, we don't know, but we can judge him from his actions.
Yeah.
He wasn't really acting very Christian.
Yeah, no, he tried to change the church and use the church for his own means, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think there's also talking about two different ideas. The freedom of speech is what we would call a right, and it's the job of the government to keep the peace so that we have that ability to speak freely. And so that's the role of the government. It's two different kingdoms. And then that is their job so that people can speak freely, and the freedom of the speech allows you to speak against corrupt powers and corruption without repercussion. That's what freedom of speech allows you to do. And that, again, that's the job of the government. It's not my job as a pastor to try to set up laws or set up a community that free speech can happen. That's not my job. My job, yes, if somebody says they're a Christian and yet goes outside of the Christian faith and is leading an outward, unrepentant, sinful life, it is my job to say, you say you're a Christian, but if you continue to go down this road, you cannot come take the Lord's Supper. You're not welcome. If you claim to be a Christian, yet you're obstinately rejecting the faith with your actions. So again, those are two different, and the Bible talks about that, how they have different roles. The government has a different role than the church. And so the church is going to look a little bit different. Yeah. So I don't know, that quote is just, it's twisting and confusing two different ideas. Regardless, I like I said, I kind of saw this coming. I'm glad Russell Brand came to this conclusion that he sees not just like in his book, through the 12 steps, he saw God as just a higher power and just this kind of this other, and it's how it's good to be spiritual, but he was spiritual but not religious, and to be able to actually have a person that you can trust in, Jesus Christ, and that person has taken away all the guilt and shame that man has. He's covered in guilt and shame. He talks about that, and to be able to have that fresh start and without that guilt and shame to be able to do the work that he wants to do, I think that's pretty remarkable. And you're not going to get that from a general deity. You're not going to get that from a higher power.
Right.
So it's really, really beautiful. It's what our country needs.
Yeah, Kat Von D is another one. I think we've maybe talked about her, but she was on LA Inc. and she was really big into like the occult and witchcraft and stuff. And she recently got baptized within the last, I think, it's the end of last year, maybe October-ish of last year. And she said that she was using those things as crutches and like, and it just, she went down spiritual rabbit holes and nothing could satisfy. Just nothing did the trick.
Yep.
So that's cool to see. That's just another kind of person you really, really wouldn't expect to go that route.
It always is interesting to me when celebrities turn to Jesus, basically. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, yeah, I've discovered this whole new life and I'm finding new purpose. And we're all kind of like, yeah, I've been doing that since I was born.
Yeah, but also awesome. Like, but
so
good. For some people, it just takes them to go through to realize. Well, and Kat Von D's parents were missionaries, and she said she ran away from home when she was 14, and because she had the natural personality to question authority a lot, and her parents just really couldn't give her the answers that she needed, or maybe they just weren't receptive to the questions, and he kind of just shouldn't do that, shouldn't question authority kind of mentality. And she said, though, she was really thankful that she did have Christian, in hindsight, looking back as an adult, thankful that her parents were Christian. But sometimes it just takes people to go out on their own and just really experience that the world just can't satisfy.
Yeah. Whenever a celebrity comes to faith, and you also can't put too much like hope in that person either. Like, oh, now that this celebrity is a Christian, now it's really valid, because sometimes these things turn around and they don't stick with it or whatever. But I do think it shows the power of that desperation, that how much pushback these celebrities are going to get, how very often they get canceled, and they it's hard to get booked again once you come out as a Christian and to be in films or movies or receive the accolades. Some groups don't want you anymore, but just shows like the desperation that, okay, this really is the answer. I'm
willing to give up
yes.
these things. And one more thing about Kat Von D too, she said when she came out as having been baptized, she was getting flack from both Christians and non, because her baptism, she wasn't fully immersed, and therefore it didn't count. And so that was like she was getting criticism from the Christians and criticism from the non-Christians about why are you doing this, and this doesn't fool and all this. So,
which means you're probably in the right spot.
Yeah, right. It's like you can't please everybody.
Right. I do wonder. I have seen and heard about, especially in cities where, there are churches that are thriving because, and they're churches that are very orthodox. They have a biblical view of sexuality and scripture and all these and this atoning sacrifice of Jesus. And in places that you would not expect, big churches in New York and big churches in LA, and thriving place where people are really changing. I think it is the emptiness that we've tried all these things. We've tried all these health, like how we open up the podcast. We tried all these different health fixes, and it didn't make our lives fulfilling. We tried.
Jesus is enough, Ben.
Jesus is enough.
You don't have to eat meat.
Give us today our daily meat. Or whatever. But I think, when you come to the end of yourself, you're looking for hope. And I think that's the hard thing about Christianity, also in a way of promoting it, is that you kind of almost have to wait for somebody to come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
If they're not thirsty, they're not going to want to drink.
Yep.
And so to have patience with people, and to realize that you're just one person in the assembly line of their life, and maybe they're not ready right now. But when a person like Russell Brand comes to the end of himself and
has questions,
right,
then you can be the person that that they feel comfortable coming to. I just said that to somebody the other day. Like, this is a long game, and it's not my job to convert anybody. But I'm going to be here when somebody has questions, and when they've come to the end of the rope, or when something tragic happens and they are really seeking something. Like, that's my role. Exactly. As far as I see it.
Yeah. So in 1 Peter it says, in your heart set apart Christ as Lord, and always be ready to give an answer for the hope that you have, but do it with gentleness and respect. And that's the thing is you set apart Christ in your heart. You believe this is true. You don't have to wear it on a sign everywhere. You don't have to, but set apart it in your heart that you always know that this is your truth. This is the truth. Not your truth. Yeah, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. That you believe this because it's true.
Right.
And then when that opportunity comes, you're ready to give an answer. And in that context, it was in the face of suffering. But do it, what he says, with gentleness and respect. You don't have to, hit people over the head with it, but with respect. So, yeah.
Good for Russell. Good for all those people in the comments, too. It's awesome. No, really, it was really cool to see.
Yeah. I'll have to bring his book in and have you read it. It's pretty funny. So.
Yeah.
And like I said before we started recording, I've heard a lot of people that have gone into recovery or struggling with addiction problems that have read his book, and I think he's really helping a lot of people because of his humor and his story. And I think God is not done with him yet. He's going to use him. So
cool.
Yeah, very cool. What else? Anything else, Matt?
No.
All right.
See you later. If you'd like to get a hold of us here at the Climbing Sycamores podcast, feel free to email bsadler@victoryofthelamb.com. bsadler@victoryofthelamb.com. If you like today's intro music, it's been brought to you by Andrew Lynch's song, My Name, Hello.